like to call this meeting to order. Thank you for joining us during our weekly hybrid MLS breakfast meetings. My name is Dora Leung, and I am your August program chair. So a little bit about myself. I think after all these weeks, everyone know who I am, but I want to have a little summarize of takeaway that I share with everyone. Remember, keep learning, committed your community, and let's do some business. The last but not the least is let's do something. I'm inspired by Michelle Obama. Okay. Today, we're very honored to have our man of hero to come up today to greet us. Let me introduce them, but before that, I have a little highlight about this wonderful speaker. Rick Cole was recently elected to the Pasadena City Council and will take office in December. He previously served on the council for 12 years and was a mayor during the years of old Pasadena's revival, where he played a key role. He went on to a long career in public service, serving as city managers with 3 Southern California cities, including Azusa, Ventura, and Santa Monica. Cole is also the chief deputy controller for the city of Los Angeles, where he supervised the accounting, payroll, audit, and paymaster functions. Nationally known for his approach to smart growth, he's been called one of the Southern California's most visionary planning thinkers. He teaches part-time at Occidental College and Pepperdine University and serves on the Pasadena Planning Commission. Let's give a round of applause our speaker, Rick Cole.
Thank you, Dora, and thank you to all of you who are here this morning and who are online. The inspirational quote today was about success really belongs to those who can manage change. And I'm highly conscious that this industry is going through a titanic change even as we speak, a confusing, complicated, and dynamic change. And it reflects the changing landscape of our country. And so what I'd like to talk about today is what you personally can do in your local communities to enhance the quality of life, to manage change in a productive and positive way. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the Sacramento City Council after the murder of George Floyd. This is the kind of politics that we see nationally that more and more is migrating down to the local level, the sort of toxic, take no prisoners, polarized politics in which you're either with us or you're against us. And the issue can be homelessness. Someone proposes a homeless shelter in the neighborhood and everyone comes unglued. It could be a land use issue, perhaps a large parcel of land that some people want to have be a park, some people want to have be housing, some people don't want to have anything happen at all. But politics can become very, very nasty, very polarized. And the result is everyone loses in these kind of battles because often it leads to litigation, recall elections, initiatives, and sometimes can leave lasting scars for years at a time. Let's go to the next slide. We tend to focus on politics, right? There's an election every 2 years. We see the lawn signs sprout in people's yards to compete with your for sale signs. And we get excited about this person or this party or that party. Underneath that, of course, we have to have a government at the national and the state and at the local level. And at the local level, we underestimate how much it affects our lives, probably more than what happens in Washington or in Sacramento, because it's the local government that trims the trees. It's the local government that's responsible for answering the 911 calls. It's the local government that paves the streets. It's the local school government that is in charge of the public education. And so government is important, but even more important than the politics who determines who runs the government, and more important than the government that provides those needed services, is the community, is the people who choose whether to vote and who to vote for. I knocked on more than 5,000 doors in my campaign for the March election. I talked to literally thousands of Pasadena residents in a couple of square miles that represents District 2. And I found universally they were thoughtful, they were caring, and they were terribly poorly informed about their local government. They barely knew how many council members, who was their council member, what does the government do? When I told people that our budget in Pasadena was $1.2 billion, their jaws dropped. 1.2, where does that money go? These are people like you. They live in the community, they go to the local restaurants, they shop in the local stores, they send their kids to the local schools, but they have no idea what's going on at their city hall. Next slide. Why is this? It's a big, huge change. San Gabriel Valley is made up of 33 local communities. Pasadena is one of the biggest. Pomona is another big one. Most of them are in the 30, 40, 50,000 category. They used to be very tight knit. They had their own chamber of commerce, their own board of realtors, their own PTAs and community organizations, Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs. In fact, every community had a big signboard when you entered the city, entering Temple City, and there would be 50 or 60 clubs listed on that big sign. This one meets Tuesday at the North Woods. This one meets on Wednesday somewhere else. The demographics have changed. We have more renters today than we had when I was growing up. Obviously, language and background has changed. We have more immigrants than we did then. But beyond the changing face of the communities, local newspapers, you used to be able, there was a local paper daily in virtually every city. And you could pick up and find out what happened at the city government. And the reporters actually dug into what was going on behind the scenes. Now it's really hardly worth it to pick up the San Gabriel Valley Tribune or the Star News or the Daily News. They have mostly stories about the latest sale at Chipotle, right? Very little about things that affect people's lives. And the result is government is now dominated by older people. For a long time, older white people. For a long time, and to today, people who own homes, people who've lived here a long time. They have a stake in the community, yes. But what about all the new people? What happens when those older people get old and leave the Planning Commission and the City Council and the Parks and Recreation Commission? Who will replace them? Who will be the civic leadership underneath the government, underneath the political winds? Who will actually make sure that San Gabriel and Monrovia and Monterey Park and Montebello, who will make sure that these communities thrive? Well, there's a Harvard scholar, Robert Putnam, who 30 years ago noticed that our big organizations across the country were going down. The League of Women Voters, the Chambers of Commerce, the Rotary clubs, the Kiwanis clubs, the Seroptimus clubs, the Civitan clubs, the Elks. We had hundreds of organizations that were the fabric of local communities. And he saw them declining in membership. And so he wrote a book called Bowling Alone. Well, why bowling alone? Because back in the 1950s, 100 million people bowled at least once a week. And here's the catch. They bowled in leagues. They bowled in leagues of their folks at work, of their folks at church, of the folks in their neighborhood. When he wrote this book 30 years later, more than 100 million people were bowling, but they were bowling with their friends and their family. It's a nice thing, but they weren't meeting and working with and learning about people who were outside their friends and their family. It was social isolation. So he went on, and let's go to the next slide. He went on to write a book called Better Together, where he went around the country and said, okay, the traditional organizations, the PTAs and the junior leagues and the junior chambers of commerce, they're declining, but is anything taking their place? And he found some wonderful, encouraging case studies in communities all across America of younger people, of newer immigrants into America, actually starting their own organizations, their own clubs, and banding together and rebuilding social capital. And I want to talk about the three dimensions because I want to make this very personal to each one of you. You're realtors. You are literally tied to this community. You are not selling houses in Seattle. You are not doing deals in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You are tied to your local communities, and your success depends upon the health of those local communities. And we can't take the health of those local communities for granted. The reason they call it social capital is because if you put money in the bank, what do you have? You have financial capital. But what if you don't put effort into organizing your local community? Your social capital, like your bank capital, goes down and down because we keep withdrawing from it. And it goes down. And finally, you have social bankruptcy. You have communities where no one knows about their community. No one cares about their community. No one wants to live in those communities. And eventually those communities go downhill. And all across America, we see those kind of communities. And we blame it on the people that live there. Oh, they're lazy, or they don't work hard, or they're somehow disadvantaged. The fact is that the churches, the community organizations, the things that helped keep the public schools thriving, those things have gone downhill. And you could predict the communities that would go downhill. And so as realtors who are out there every day welcoming new people into these communities, you have a unique opportunity to introduce them not just to the house or the street or the neighborhood, but to the local schools, the local community, to get them involved. And what are the three dimensions of how to do that? Well, I'm going to talk about them: the public realm, community organizations, and civic engagement. So let's go to the next slide. The public realm is something we all experience every day, and yet we take it for granted as just, well, it's just there or it's not there. But the public realm is actually a very fragile physical dimension of social capital. It's our parks, it's our libraries, it's our public schools, it's our streets in busy areas like Old Pasadena or in Alhambra, where people are mingling. They're going to a movie, they're going shopping, they're going to eat, and they're seeing people of different backgrounds, come from different neighborhoods, different incomes. And then there's the way in which we animate those spaces with festivals and night markets and parades and opportunities to celebrate each other and to lift up the diversity of our communities and to show that we can live together, that it's important for us to work together, to meet people who don't look like us, who haven't been here as long or who have been here longer. So the public realm is really important, and communities need to design this, and they need to keep those places safe and animated. When people abandon a park, you not only see the crime, but what you don't see is the kids who aren't going to that playground. What you don't see is the families who are not meeting each other, the young moms and dads who are getting new friends. You don't see those people who are shut in and who don't venture out anymore after dark, and eventually their life becomes very lonely and alienated, and we lose them. So the public realm is not something we can take for granted. We need to build in the public realm, and we need to animate the public realm. Dora made reference to Old Pasadena. Old Pasadena was Skid Row in Pasadena. No one went there. People used to say, well, you can't go there because it's unsafe. There was no crime there because there were no people there. There were drunks in the bars that opened at 9 a.m. and they stayed there till 2 in the morning. They were very benign. They were not people who would hurt anybody, but people stayed away from it. Now, the place 18 hours a day is full of life. That was intentional. We created a public realm where people from all over the San Gabriel Valley and beyond come and meet each other and see each other and encounter each other and work together. And of course, it creates a vibrant economic engine. Let's go to the next slide. Again, this is an example, right? What if there wasn't a West San Gabriel Valley Board of Realtors? What if you all were just on your own? And the synergy that comes from mortgage companies and property management companies and realtors and folks in the real estate industry actually getting to meet each other and thinking about ideas and developing relationships. What if you didn't exist? Well, organizations are dying. They're getting old, and they're not incorporating enough young people. So either we need to get more young people in those organizations, or we need to start new organizations that will appeal to young people. You know, the Kiwanis Club, my grandfather was in the Kiwanis Club. I don't know anyone under 30 that wants to spend an hour and a half once a week at lunchtime singing silly songs. Now, my grandfather loved it, but people under 30 are just not going to come to that. And people look around and say, well, they're apathetic, or they're too busy. Well, we have to, if again, to that inspirational quote, those who thrive are those who manage change. And if things are changing, we either adapt to that change or communities go downhill and they die. And you, in your personal life, can either start or join an organization. Maybe go to that Kiwanis Club and suggest maybe there's some things we could do differently. Maybe instead of a once a week lunchtime at Denny's, maybe instead we could do a once a month cleanup of the park, or help a preschool paint up their campus. Younger people would say, sure, I'm up for that. I'll get my paint clothes on, I'll bring my shovel. That's to create community organizations at the neighborhood level, right? Where people get to know each other at the neighborhood level, at the community level. That's the invisible social capital that binds us together. And if we're not bound together, what happens to e pluribus unum? Pull out the dollar in your wallet, right? And this, you're in business, right? Dollars matter. It says on there, e pluribus unum. That is not Mandarin. That is not Cantonese. That is Latin. And it means out of many comes one, right? And so if you want to have one community, then we need to pull together the many and find the common ground. Next slide. This is something that I found as a city manager, most of my colleagues paid very little attention to. They said, you know, if you asked a city manager in San Gabriel or Monterey Park or Alhambra, so what's the job of city government? What do you do? Well, stupid question. We provide services. We're the people that do the libraries, the police, the fire, the parks. That's what we do. We provide services to the community. That's the job of government. No, that's not the job of government. The job of government is to have a healthy, prosperous, dynamic community where you want to live. That's the job of government. Now, the way we get there is in part through our parks and our libraries and our police and our fire. But the goal is to have a community you want to live in, a community that's safe, a community that's healthy. That's the purpose of government. It's not to provide particular services. It's to create the outcome of a great place to live. and also a great place to do business and a great place to be able to get what you need, whether it's a healthcare or education. That's what makes a great community. And it doesn't come down from heaven. We create it. And so civic engagement is, let's all get together and think about what makes our community unsafe, and let's fix it. If we have homeless people, let's figure out a way to solve that problem. If we have crime, let's figure out a way to get to the root of that. Let's figure out this together rather than outsource it to government. Sometimes we think about government as a vending machine, right? Has anyone ever used a vending machine here? Yes? So what happens when you put your money into a vending machine and you don't get, you want to order a candy bar, you put in your dollar and you press the button and nothing comes out. What happens then? Right? I made this metaphor to some people up north in a rural area. They said, well, up here, we'd shoot it. Well, guess what? When we treat government like a vending machine, like we put our money in and we punch the button and we expect great schools. We punch the button, we expect safe parks. We punch the button, we expect someone to come when we call 911 right away. What happens if it doesn't? We shake the machine. We start recall petitions. We start initiative petitions. We start suing the city. We start saying, damn it, the government needs to change. And if we don't get what we want, we move if we can. Instead of thinking of government as a vending machine, let's think of it as the way back in the old days of the pioneers. Families could not build their own barns. The barn was too big for one family to build, needed help. And so they had these things called barn raising, where they get the whole valley to come together and everybody had something to do. The strong young men would do the nailing and the lifting, and there'd be somebody who'd say a prayer at the beginning. There'd be some people to take care of the kids. There'd be some people to fry the chicken and feed everybody. And the whole community came together to help people build it. This was before, Barns R Us and before, government affordable barns. This was communities coming together. What if we thought about our local communities not as a vending machine that we pay our tax money and then we bang on it when we don't get what we want? What if we thought about it as a community working together to solve problems and to make our communities better? And you as realtors are uniquely advantaged because you know a lot of people, you have actually financial skills, you are organized, and not just think about it, well, that's okay, we're going to take over the government and then they're going to do what we want, but rather, how can we come together? Let's go to the next slide. This is so elusive in today's America, right? I watched some of the Republican convention. I've been watching some of the Democratic convention. And here's what I hear from both sides. We're tired of those people and their ugly, divisive politics. Join us because we represent the real America and we'll bring everybody together except those terrible people in the other party, right? What? I mean, the cognitive dissonance is so obvious. People saying, well, let's be unified by getting rid of the bad guys over there. At the local level, I was really worried when I started knocking on doors, right? Are you for Trump? Are you against Trump? Like, I didn't find that. I didn't, there was one or two, but that's out of thousands. Most people wanted to know, well, what are you going to do about homelessness? What are you going to do about the speeding cars on my street? And I began to say to them, well, it's not what I'm going to do. It's what we're going to do together. The government and the people need to be partners. When we embarked on this strange experiment back in 1776, the vast majority of humanity, 99%, were governed by kings and emperors. And we said no. We, the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, do ordain and establish this Constitution to promote the general welfare, to provide for the common defense. We took it upon ourselves to govern ourselves. And so we need to find common ground. That doesn't mean we'll always agree. I'm going to close with an example. Rent control in Pasadena, right? The mayor said, rent control will never pass in Pasadena. We're a homeowning town. We're a town that we believe in free enterprise, and we're not going to allow this. And then he was surprised when 54% of the people voted for rent control. What happened was the city council ignored the fact that the community had gone from 60% homeowner to 60% renter, and the renters were hurting, especially during COVID. And instead of reaching out and trying to find ways to address that pain, they said, well, that's not really our problem. Well, it became their problem because then people went out and they gathered 20,000 signatures and they got their initiative passed. By the way, the realtors in Pasadena strongly opposed it, but that didn't matter. It passed anyway. And for last year, we've been struggling to get this thing working, and it's been very difficult because folks weren't out there looking to find a common ground. It was us versus them. It was renters versus the real estate industry. We need to find solutions to problems. And that doesn't mean we'll always agree. It doesn't mean we'll always come up with perfect answers. But unless we take on that challenge, I think the future of our communities is not bright. Right now, we can take money out of the bank, right? We can continue to do our business and think about, how am I going to advance my business? But are we putting social capital back in? Are we investing back into our community? Are we helping bring people to improve our public schools, to make our communities safer, to involve new people, to be proud of living in Temple City, and to really that have to have some meaning. It's just not just an address, but it's a place where people care about each other. That's an opportunity. I think, again, each one of you has a great opportunity to do. And I'm sure that many of you are already doing it. But recruit other people. Explain to people why being part of this profession not only gives you some opportunities, but it gives you some responsibilities. Because again, you are invested in local communities. This is not an international business. When it becomes an international business, we all lose. We want our communities to be distinct. We want our communities to be unique. We want people from all over the world to come here and feel like this is home. With that, thank you very much. And I'm happy to take a couple questions. We got just a couple minutes left. Questions or comments? Sure.
I think the Measure H you just talked about, which
Yes.
passed.
Mhm.
What do you see the consequence? Because, for example, insurance has maybe triple for some of the apartments.
Mhm.
So landlord, are they able to raise rent or not really?
The way it was written does not allow those kind of pass-throughs. That's one of the reasons that I suggested it would have been helpful in advance to have a real dialogue, so that we could maybe address some of those issues versus just do nothing or pass Measure H. So these are some of the challenges that I think will have to be worked out over years. I hear and I listen to and I care about the adversity that mom and pop landlords are now facing. There was also stories of adversity of renters that were being ignored, right? And so if people are suffering, whether they're renters or whether they're landlords, we need to be addressing those. And it would have been better to have addressed them together instead of, well, let's ignore this or ignore that. Well, I think we need to be concerned about making things work.
So moving forward, since you're going to be on a city council, do you see an amendment to Measure H or?
Well, only the people can amend Measure H.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? I'm happy to address maybe the most important question is, well, how, okay, you've just given this call to action, Rick. How do I do that? You may be part of a church, or a mosque or a temple, getting your religious community involved in dealing with, say, homelessness in our communities. You might have an environmental interest, join the local Sierra Club or start a local environmental group. You might have kids or not have kids in our local schools, but it's important for the health of our communities that we get involved in making our schools better, and not necessarily yelling at people about, ban this book or don't ban this book, but how do we raise the scores for reading and math? That's probably more important than some of the things we get all wound up about.
Okay, so I think I agree with you in regards to kind of society not being as interacting as it used to be.
Mhm.
And I think when you think about like Zoom or social media, it's so easy to not engage people,
Mm.
right? To basically say, I'm gonna stay at home or I'm gonna do whatever I'm gonna
Mhm.
do for my business on my own.
Mhm.
What are some things you're seeing for the youth, young people, doing, implementing? I know you mentioned about just getting involved with your church, right?
Mhm.
But what are some things too that that you see maybe working to get
Mhm.
people out? Because I agree, I think that it's a problem when people are just at home. I don't think human beings were made to be just at home. I think we have to engage with people. I'm here today, and these people are here today too, right?
Yeah. Great challenge. Last Tuesday night, I had a forum. I'm not on the council yet, but it's 9 months I have to wait between winning the election and going on the council. So I didn't want to just disappear because I'd talked to these thousands of people. So I've been having monthly issue forums. We had one on affordable housing. We had one on public safety with our police chief. We had one on our future water supply. And this last one on Tuesday was about climate change. We had 140 people. We maxed out. We had to grab chairs. And one of the people on my panel was a sophomore in high school. But when she was a freshman in high school, she started the sustainability club and got her school to recycle and compost the waste from the cafeteria. And she's gotten very involved in the climate change issue, and she won the President's Award for Environmental Leadership and got to go to the White House to accept it. This is a high school student, and she sounds like a future president, actually. If high school students can do this and recruit their fellow high school students to get involved, then I think we can find creative ways to do to get younger people out of their cocoons, because it's great to curate your life on Instagram, right? Here I am at this restaurant and I'm having this wonderful meal. But, we all need something more than just likes and emojis. We need connection to other people. And that's a personal thing, but it's also a community thing. I think that we're gonna need to find our way back to that. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, our wonderful speakers. Hopefully you can get our social capital investment ongoing, not bankruptcy. So on behalf of Western Gable Board Association Realtor, we would like to have a little token of appreciation to our speakers. Very important moment. We have a President Link message to the members.
Unfortunately, this week I have a sad announcement. One of our many years member of our association has passed. Does anybody know Judy Berkey? Tom Berkey Sr., our past president's wife, has passed. So let's give her a moment of silence. She's a very lovely lady, and she has always been very kind to our association. Please, okay. If anybody are familiar or friends with the Berkey family, please give them your condolences, because it's always sad to see one of our longtime member passed. And I'm sorry, today is a little sad note. So continue our breakfast meeting and don't get COVID. A lot of people are sick. Okay, be careful out there. Okay, thank you.
Please join us next week as we welcome our affiliate roundtable. Always support our affiliate, right? Thank you everyone for joining our meeting today. Have a wonderful day. This meeting is now adjourned.